Welcome to the Women in Wellness podcast,
where we believe that the world can be changed one woman at a time.
Your journey to becoming more present, healthy, and joyous starts right now.
All right, Women in Wellness, welcome to probably an episode that everybody is dying to hear. The reason I say that is we are in the holiday season, and everybody is asking, how can we still eat healthy during the holiday season? What is it that you guys do? Do you guys eat gross, flavorless, cardboard tasting food, or do you still do the traditional type meals? Do you throw all of your eating habits to the wind during the 2 weeks that the holidays seem to fall within? Or are you really strict and nobody likes to be around you? So this episode, we've decided to talk to you about our favorite holiday recipes. What do holidays look like in our house? And some tips behind it. And the unique part about this is you have 3 totally different holiday experiences. So if you came to each of our houses, you would be, eating very different meals by the sounds of it. So you have Dr. Mindy in California having a very traditional California holiday. You have Dr. Sonya having a Indian holiday. And then you have me, Dr. Caitlin, incorporating a lot of Polish foods into the holiday season. So why don't we start by, do you ladies just throw everything to the wind, or do you guys still eat the way that you normally eat? Just it happens to be the holidays.
Yeah, I still stick to the regular routine. I will have to say Christmas Day looks a little bit different because there will be some earlier breakfast with the kids as we're opening presents and things like that. And then having an Indian fusion Christmas looks a little bit different than what I would normally eat. So I'm going to say that day it's kind of out of the window. But other than that, I do stick to how I normally eat because that's how I feel good. I don't want to be going through the holidays not feeling like myself and feeling good and not being able to enjoy them. So I incorporate all the habits that we have within the holidays. What about you, Dr. Mindy?
Yeah, I would agree that because feeling good is such a top priority, I would say that I stick pretty much to all of the foods that I normally eat. I will definitely go more carb-centric. I would like to say up until yesterday, I could have said I always stay gluten-free, but I decided to glutenize myself yesterday, and that didn't go so well. So I'm actually going to say this holiday, it'll all be gluten-free. And my whole family, my parents, my sister, when they come, they're all gluten-free. So our friends are gluten-free. So we pretty much just make some modifications on the traditional stuff, but I'm not looking to feel horrible on December 31st.
Oh, heck no. And you can't enjoy family when you feel gross, you know?
So true. So true.
You end up being cranky and you're not enjoying the experience. And I don't know about you guys, but honestly, for me, the best part about the holidays is just being with everybody and talking and laughing. And we play tons of cards. Like we probably play about 8 hours worth of cards while the food's being cooked. And so me feeling like garbage or crap that whole day would just be unpleasant for everybody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So why don't you guys start? Like, why don't we start with breakfast? Do you guys want to start with what your breakfast looks like Christmas morning?
Oh, so having 2 young kids of age 4 and 7, I'm going to have to say pancakes. But my version of pancakes, they're usually sweet potato pancakes with no flour, and they know nothing different. So they play along with it. And we'll have some maple syrup that day, maybe some honey, or I kind of tend to stick some sort of nut butter on their pancakes, making sure that there's some sort of fat going in them too. But pancakes are big for us, I would say, Christmas morning.
And your Christmas morning starts at like 5 a.m. with that.
I know, right? Luckily, we try to keep them in their beds because they sleep with us that night.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. My brother hasn't gotten the memo, so when we're all together, like in one place, like if we're in BC in the mountains, my brother still wakes up at 5 and it's like, it's Christmas. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's 5 a.m. Go back.
And how old is he now?
Oh, he's in his 30s.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't change then.
Okay.
Well, not with him anyway.
Yeah, no, we, in my house, I mean, luckily now I've got teens, they're sleeping in. In fact, we're waking them up now. But we typically do two things. I always do a frittata. So my favorite is actually to take butternut squash and you line the bottom of a pan with butter, like a Pyrex pan with butternut squash. And then we do eggs and cheese, and I do sage and onions, red onions cut up, and put that on top of it so that when it cooks, it creates like a crust at the bottom. That's butternut squash.
I've done something similar with the acorn squash. Same thing, that's on the bottom, and then I cook like the sunny side eggs separately, and then I'll do mushrooms and onion saute, put that on top, and then some spinach. So yeah, similar.
Yeah. So now that's kind of, everybody's used to that. And again, my mom will go and get gluten-free treats sometimes at Whole Foods, and so everybody's comes in with there's always a ton of gluten-free pastries. And we've been doing gluten-free for so long that the kids don't always know, and gluten-free's come so far, we had a bunch of gluten-free treats yesterday that my son's friends were munching down on. You just don't notice the difference, I don't think, anymore. So a lot of pastries, a lot of coffee, a lot of frittata.
Yep. We do a similar frittata, but I use sweet potatoes as the base. So it sounds like we all have similar ideas, but varying recipes. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
One thing that I do for Christmas that I don't normally do is I will make gluten-free cinnamon buns.
Oh.
And so, yeah.
Okay.
So I make everything ahead of time, and that way the morning of I can just pop it in the oven, and it takes a little bit, but then we have the cinnamon buns with some really good bacon usually, or some kind of sausage, and typically some kind of egg kind of thing, whether it's going to be like a skillet where I put it in my cast iron and just throw everything in and throw it in the oven, or like a scramble of some sort with all sorts of veggies and kimchi and that kind of stuff. But it's usually just a mix mash, but it's the cinnamon bun that really makes it special. And usually the holiday season, we'll make our coffee extra special with a little bit of like frangelico or something like that. But
I usually put a little bit of peppermint in my chai tea in the morning. Yep.
There you go. A little bit of peppermint schnapps.
Uh-huh.
A little bit of Bailey's maybe later. Yeah.
So with the cinnamon buns, do you do coconut sugar over regular sugar?
I'll either do coconut, or being Canadian, I'm a maple bean. I love maple. And so I actually use maple sugar. So that's what I use. Lots and lots of cinnamon and nutmeg and clove, because I just love spices. And obviously mine are gluten-free, because unlike you, I've learned too long ago that I can't just indulge in gluten-filled normal stuff, because I feel like I got run over by a car, or actually a truck, for a couple days. So it's not worth it. And you've learned that yesterday.
Yeah. It took me, I haven't tested it in a long time, and now I know that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But I've switched all of our sugar in the house to coconut sugar. It's lower on the glycemic. Again, the sweetness doesn't seem to matter. If I cook something with stevia, the kids are going to notice. If I cook something with erythritol, they're going to notice, even monk fruit. But I do notice coconut sugar is like the more acceptable. And I haven't tried maple sugar. Where do you get that?
Canada. No, I'm sure you can order it online.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
It's just, I stocked up, so I need to go back to Quebec to get more. So you ladies want to come with me?
Yeah.
I know.
Go to Montreal, make a weekend of it.
Yeah, just to get some maple sugar. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's definitely not Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Not from Quebec. I honestly think you could find maple sugar. I'll look it up.
And I'm sure I can send you some too, Mindy.
Okay.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
What about our
Thank you.
listeners? Where could they get it? Because coconut sugar really is an awesome alternative, and that's something that I do use pretty
It
regularly.
has a distinct taste though, coconut sugar. I like it. Not everybody does.
Mm.
And also you don't have to use as much when you're using coconut or maple. So when you're looking at a recipe, if it says like half a cup of sugar, you maybe need a few tablespoons.
Yeah.
Like you
I
don't
was
need
gonna
very
say,
much.
cut it in
Yeah.
half at least.
Yeah, at least.
But the coconut sugar, do you guys find it's kind of molassesy?
Yeah, I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It feels earthy
Yeah.
and like hearty to me. I like it.
Yeah. It doesn't always mix as well though. So, and it makes everything dark. So if you have a light, something like if you were making a cheesecake or something, it doesn't work for those kind of things. So that's the one thing I found.
One thing I found with coconut sugar that can really help is if you make like a simple syrup out of it, that can really help with like mixing it in and making it more uniform versus just using the granulated crystals by itself.
That's a great
So,
idea.
I'll
Yeah.
sometimes do that.
Okay.
Perfect. So, and then obviously you guys use coconut flour, almond flour, cassava. Like what are the flours that you guys will use?
Mostly coconut and almond. However, you do have to use a lot of eggs if you're baking when it comes to the coconut or even the almond, not as much. I would say more for coconut, but those are the two main flours that I use. I use a lot of chickpea flour as well in a lot of my recipes. It helps to bind things a bit quicker.
Yeah, we, again, because we do a lot of gluten-free stuff, not necessarily always grain-free. Honestly, my absolute favorite flour, well, there's two of them, but the one that I get the most compliments on is Pamela's pie mix, gluten-free pie mix, and you can get that online. But if I make a pie with that pie mix, or make a crust with that pie mix, and I bring like a pumpkin pie with coconut sugar to a party, I always get compliments. People have no idea that it's gluten-free. So that's a winner. And then, I think it's called Cup for Cup. It's Thomas Keller's flour. He's the chef who owns the French Laundry. He has a gluten-free flour that's really good and you can find almost anywhere.
Bob's Red Mill has a paleo flour. So it's got the almond and the coconut and a few other things that you can use for pies, pizzas, muffins, pancakes, any of that. Very hearty. I used it for pancakes one day. I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is filling.
Yeah.
So very hearty. And I tend to make my pie shells for raw desserts anyways with dates and sort of nut. So whether you use walnuts or almonds or cashews, you can use flax seeds, and it's just dates and the nut. You just put it in the food processor, and then all you have to do is pat it down on your pie dish, and you're good to go.
That's
I do that a lot with pecans.
Yeah,
I typically use pecans, but yeah, great alternative. What was I going to say something, but I lost my train of thought. Okay, so what do you guys do for apps? So when you guys are all together, what is your favorite holiday appetizer? And Dr. Mindy, the one that you said is one of my favorites. So do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. And this is funny because my daughter came home from college on Friday at 11 o'clock at night, and this was her one request was this appetizer. I'm like, we only make those on special occasions. But basically it's dates and we vary the cheese inside the date wrapped with bacon on top. And then you put them in the oven and cook them, and they're to die for. So I think you're supposed to put blue cheese. I think the original recipe has blue cheese in it. But I'm not a huge blue cheese fan. So we have tried all different kinds, and that's where you got to get creative. But they're easy. Kids can make them. They're quick to cook. You bring them to a party. People love them. They just have they are savory, but they're sweet. Those are our favorite.
One thing that you need to try stuffing some of them with almonds.
Ooh.
That is what I do because I really don't have patience, and we try not to do too much dairy in my house, just because I noticed that I don't do so hot with it, and neither does my husband. But we stuff them with almonds, and that little crunch. Ooh. So do a couple of them and let me know.
I will. So my husband's allergic to almonds, but I'll put him on a different, or he's allergic to nuts. I'll put him on a different side of the pan.
There you go. Just be like, and not for you.
Right. Only if you want to die.
Yeah.
If you're looking for the anaphylactic experience this holiday.
Right
maybe he wants an out of the holiday experience. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about you, Sonya?
So as I was saying about the Indian fusion, Christmas, our appies look very different. So my frustration with Christmas dinner and young kids is, especially these last 8 years, my kids go to bed very early, and I've tried times where, okay, I'm going to let them stay up a little bit late, see how it goes, but something always shifts, and then they're restless all night, and they're waking up early, and then the week is gone for us. So I try to keep them on routine when it comes to sleep. I mean, my oldest one now at 8 is a bit more adaptable, but my younger one, he just don't want to be around him when he's that tired. So my challenge is at home, I actually don't do appies. I'm going to go straight to dinner because there's just no time. But at my parents' house where we gather for Christmas, it's very Indian. So samosas, you're going to get lots of veggies and some like a fruit tray. It's kind of typical in that house will be some sort of like spinach dip, but we try to modify it so the ingredients are different. There's probably going to be some nuts and seeds and things like that, but those are kind of like the big things. So that usually goes on for about 2 to 3 hours, where you're just snacking on these appetizers, and dinner does not show up till way later. So it's been kind of a frustration for me, but we're trying to change that.
Yeah.
So
that's like opposite. That's opposite everything we teach, right?
Exactly. So really that day I have to be so patient with the whole process and be like, okay, this is dietary variation. I'm okay with this. It's going to be okay. It's one day out of the year.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we will get back to routine. So that's I typically try not to eat the appies so that I can have more room for the dinner, which I really enjoy. But those are the typical appetizers you'll see at our place.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be hungry for dinner after that, because snacky food for me is I will just snack. If it's there and it's something I can eat, I will just continue to snack, and then I'm no longer hungry for dinner.
Yeah.
And you've seen the kitchen island at my parents' place.
My God, yeah.
It's covered with food from one end to the other for appetizers. So yes,
well, if you guys ever need help with food, except that's a little bit of a drive for me. So,
right.
You know, I think you do bring up an interesting point, though. What do you do? I was talking to a patient. I was on a nutrition consult with them, and they were saying how they were going to their in-laws, and that the food at their in-laws was so unhealthy, and she was just dreading it for her children, because how do you explain that grandpa can eat Captain Crunch, but you can't, or whatever it is. And, here was my advice, and I'm curious what you guys think, is that you said it early on, Caitlin, that holidays to me are about family, they're about relationships. I'm not looking to rock the boat. So for my own self, I'll just not eat something that isn't copacetic with my what I feel like is right for me. But with my kids, I don't hunt them down and grab stuff out of their mouth. I don't say, no, you can't do that. I'm very clear that in my household, we eat a certain way. And when we're out of the household, that there are going to be variations to that may work for you and may not. So I'm kind of curious how, when you say it goes on forever, how do you deal with that for yourself and for your kids?
So for my kids on that day, if they are going to have some appetizer, I do the same. I don't go and like grab things out of their mouth, but mostly they're pretty good at asking me about what they can have and can't have. So they'll question it, especially the older one. The younger one will probably sneak a few things in. But so what I'll do is I'll feed them early. The dinner's usually already ready and done, and I will feed them early. And unfortunately, they're not getting that experience with the family when it comes to sitting down and eating dinner together. But that's just what I've had to accommodate with. And so that's where we're trying to work with the family. Be like, okay, now they're old enough, we want them involved, so let's just make dinner a little bit earlier. But I've just been educating them along the way, so they already have an idea of what they can have and can't have. And again, if they choose something that they technically can't have, I'm not going to rip it out of their mouth. It's the holidays, same thing for birthday parties. I have the same rule. In our home, this is the way we eat, but when you're out, you're going to have to start making some decisions for yourself, even at a young age. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think it's important to know what you're eating, and for you to decide, is it worth it or isn't it worth it? Whenever we're having like the huge extended family kind of thing with my cousins and everything, I don't expect my cousins to eat the way that we eat. They just don't see it, which is totally fine. But, I'll make sure to bring something like a dessert that my family, the way that we eat, we can have. And if other people want it, by all means, go for it. But I definitely don't police. And so what we tell our patients is, you know, bring something that you can have, you know, that way you know that you can eat it and you don't have to feel bad, or just make the best decision you can. And when
it's an education moment, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be able, they will ask you what it is that you're having, and then you can educate them on your reasons if they're curious about it.
Well, and the best part is when they try what we bring them.
Yes, right.
Oh, wow. What is
Yes.
this? Somebody I know goes, oh, gluten-free stuff tastes like crap. And so their kid tried what I brought, and she goes, this doesn't taste bad. This is delicious. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah. Well, my birthday parties that I host for the kids, everything's gluten-free and good for you. My cakes are made from like beets, and the frosting's made from avocado. And I remember even my brother was like, oh God, I'm going to have to eat this. And he was even like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And yeah, so you can make them taste really good.
Yeah. Agreed.
So my Polish appetizers, some of them I can't do, like pickled herring. Like that's a staple in my house.
Oh, but that'd be so good for your gut, right?
It is so good, but when you're force-fed it for like, since you were old enough to eat, it's one of those things where you just can't do it. But my favorite is a variety of deviled eggs.
Oh, I love deviled eggs.
Deviled eggs are a big thing in our house. You know, growing up Roman Catholic, Polish, they usually, my grandparents would get them blessed, like the eggs blessed before they even made them. But I have a variety of different ways to make it now. So I do like an avocado deviled egg, or I'll do a curried deviled egg, or I might do like a bacon flavored deviled egg with like little pieces of bacon. And so I really try and spruce up the deviled eggs over the holidays just so that it's a little more interesting and fun.
You know, my grandma used to make deviled eggs. I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I'm going to add that to my mom's list to make. Deviled eggs are great. And if you make them with the right ingredient, they can really fit into a healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's probably my favorite appetizer next to the one that you mentioned.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
So what do you guys, what does your main dish look like? So whether it's like a protein and a side, or like the whole fixings, like what do you guys normally have on your plate for the holidays?
So me being vegetarian, it looks a little bit different. I guess I can't call myself completely vegetarian, plant-based. My family does make a turkey, so they will have their turkey, and mine ends up looking like a lot of side dishes that are there, whether it's like roasted vegetables or asparagus, Brussels sprouts, sometimes we make like a butternut squash lasagna. We'll do that, or some sort of a soup. Sometimes I'll take acorn squash and like stuff that. I'll use some grains that day with some like quinoa and some pomegranate on top. So things like that. So that's kind of what my plate would look like, whereas everyone else would vary with the turkey.
Have you never done? I have some patients that do a tofurkey.
No, I don't do tofu.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
I don't, because it's not the texture that I miss. I think a lot of people that do that miss the texture of meat, and so they go and get these meat substitutes. But the tofu, and I don't feel like I need it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My problem with the substitutes is they're normally not very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I'm all for being plant-based. Actually, I would probably say we're 80% plant-based and 20% animal-based with what we do. Other than eggs, I don't consider eggs in the animal base. But whenever I buy something, if I'm looking for an alternative, the alternative tends to be less healthy than if you were to just do it. So like these bacon flavors, you know, when they use like alternative bacon, the chemicals and everything they use to get it to taste like bacon, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the soy base behind it. Mm-hmm. So we can go off on a tangent there, but maybe we'll do that some other time.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, it's really, anytime you go to a flavoring, you're now in a dangerous nutritional world. So, we do, at Thanksgiving, we always do turkey, and all of our meats are hormone free. I mean, that's a pretty common value for all of us. So it's not just, my parents go hormone free, our closest friends that we do the holidays with, no, are gluten free and hormone free. So I think the quality of meat is really important. Then we do a lot of lamb, grass-fed lamb. That's often Christmas dinner. Like stuffing at Thanksgiving we do a gluten-free cornbread that will often work. And sometimes my mom does a rice stuffing that has worked really well. So I think it's pretty easy with the stuffing to get away from the grains, or from gluten for sure. When you get creative, you start to think outside the box. But the two dishes that I think really have stuck through the years in our family is, one, instead of mashed potatoes, we do a sweet potato ancho chili mash. So it's sweet potatoes and cream and butter and ancho chilies, a little bit of spice in it. And we put you cook them and put them in the Cuisinart, and it's like a mashed potato. And it's, oh my God, I'm salivating thinking of it. It's to die for. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, the Instant Pot, you can make mashed potato or sweet potatoes in 8 minutes.
Oh.
We just discovered that a few weeks ago. And you can put in like turnips in there, the beets and all that kind of stuff too. 8 minutes and everything's done.
So, I have to try that, because I recently read an article that sweet potatoes, are lower on the glycemic index. They're technically will alter your blood sugar less than a potato, which always seems really weird to me because they're sweeter than a potato. But the way you cook the sweet potato really matters. So the longer it takes to cook the sweet potato, the more it's going to spike your blood sugar. So I read this a couple months ago. So in an Instant Pot, if you can do it in 8 minutes, I'm curious, it'd be interesting to test blood sugar with it. I love baked sweet potatoes, but then sometimes for regular dinners, we'll do sweet potato coins where I just cut them up. Those take a minute or two to cook. So technically, if this theory is right, then that would spike your blood sugar, would not spike it as high. So
interesting.
Yeah, so that's interesting about the Instant Pot. But as I told you guys, the absolute family favorite meal is, we realized years ago that nobody really loved the cranberry sauce, and that it had so much sugar in it. And so, but that it's kind of necessary if you're going to do turkey. Turkey by itself it's kind of dry. I mean, it's really not that interesting of a meat. So we do pomegranate salsa. And this is living in California. We did this last night. My parents brought over a big bag of pomegranates for us all to make the pomegranate salsa. I will put the recipe in the Women in Wellness Facebook group, because it's literally pomegranates with citrus in it. So we do the zest of lime and lemon and orange in there, and then add a little red onion and coconut sugar. And
sounds very Californian.
Yes, it is very Californian, but it's so good. It's to die for. So, and it's
all you got to do is add some avocado.
Yeah, I would probably just stick some curry in there or something.
Yeah, no, you can't. No, if I post the recipe, you're not going to change it. This recipe has been perfected over the 20 years.
Okay, no curry, got it.
Actually, it's been like 30 years of doing this. So, but the pomegranate salsa is our favorite.
That sounds really, really good. One thing that we always have, and that I grew up eating, was cabbage rolls. But cabbage rolls are filled with rice, and that's just too much for me when we're doing eating pretty much all day long. So I've actually substituted my cabbage rolls, the rice, with cauliflower. So I'll do everything else the same, do cauliflowered rice, still bake it with the tomatoes and everything, and everybody really loves it. It's not going to spike your blood sugar as much, plus you don't get that really full feeling like you normally do after eating rice.
Yeah.
One thing that we really love with turkey, because I agree with you, turkey can be really dry, kind of uneventful. We'll smoke our turkey. And so smoked turkey tends to be a little bit juicier. It's not quite as dry. And the thing that I love most, is taking the smoked turkey bones and making a soup out of it.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll make and turn it into borscht, which is my all-time favorite soup.
I
So
love borscht.
Do you
yeah,
have a borscht recipe? Because you need to post that too.
I do. Unfortunately, it's not exactly like my babcha. She um, didn't write, I don't know what happened to all of her recipes, but I've tried talking with my aunt and my dad to reconstruct it, and so it is still pretty tasty. It's not
Yeah.
as good because it's never as good as, the original from your grandparents, but it's pretty delish.
That's
And then
awesome.
the protein, it could be anything, but like you, Dr. Mindy, if we're going to eat protein, it has to be hormone free, free range, very, very clean. Otherwise, we're not touching it.
Hmm.
I think this is a good thing to bring back to the listeners is like there's the ability to substitute. So even if you're doing the potatoes and you're using butter, like get the grass-fed butter, get the
Yeah.
grass-fed milk, like just there's always things that you can do. If you're going to be making dessert, get the coconut sugar or the maple sugar. So there's always a way, and it's still going to taste good, but you can still participate and be part of the whole process with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, my number one nutrition rule is quality above everything else. I think that's so important that you're getting high quality ingredients that are chemical free, that are organic. That is like the number one. If you're not doing that, it's like going back to the substitution idea. You get off on, oh, I want to be gluten free, but then you go to the market and you see that there's like a gluten-free cake with a bunch of synthetic chemicals in it. It's like, no, 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 no. That is not health food. Quality of ingredients is so important.
100% agree.
Yep.
What is your guys' favorite dessert?
Ooh, okay, there's so many.
I know where to start, right?
Where do you start? But I think I posted just a little while ago the chocolate mousse that we were talking about,
Yeah.
but putting it into a pie form. So making that crust that I was speaking of with the walnuts and the dates, and then avocado, cacao, and a little bit of maple syrup. And that's all you need. And you can put some cardamom in there. Of course, I have to add a little bit of an Indian spice to it or some peppermint to make it a little bit more Christmassy. And you just put it in the freezer. So that's more for like a raw, kind of a cold dessert that I like to make. Or I'll even do that with pumpkin and cashews and blend that all up and do the same thing and put that in the freezer, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a pumpkin pie gal all the way. I did we used to have pecan pie, which I really loved, but it's made with caraway syrup. And I don't know if my mom has found a way to make that better, but it's no longer on our table. So we are a pumpkin pie kind of family.
I love pumpkin pie.
Love it. Breakfast, pumpkin pie for breakfast. That's
Why not?
Yeah.
I love that we normally talk about fasting and not eating, and this whole episode is about food. What about you, Dr. Caitlin?
So there's a couple things. I have a really amazing pumpkin chiffon pie recipe. So it's really light and fluffy and full of cinnamon, and my husband loves pumpkin everything. And so I'll make that. My sister, however, hates pumpkin everything. So I'll do something different for her. So Dr. Mindy, I actually think that I may have figured out how to do pecan pie without the corn syrup and all that other stuff.
Yes.
So if that's the case, let me try it again.
Okay.
I will post that recipe.
Please.
But one thing that we really do love is a good cheesecake.
Oh, yes.
So that'll be something that I might do on occasion. But
pumpkin?
When I do, oh yeah, sometimes pumpkin, but not when my sister's around. So I'll do either just like a vanilla one or lemon. Actually, lemon's really delicious, and then you can put whatever compote on top of it. So, but the dairy, if I'm going to do that, it has to be organic, grass-fed, cream cheese. Otherwise, no good.
Yeah.
And
You can
back
also make a cashew
to
cream cheese
yeah, and
for
I've
those
done
that
that.
want to be dairy free.
I've done that before too, where you can be completely dairy free and do the cashew, where you soak the cashews and then you blend it up, and it's delicious. And those ones are typically no bake either, so you can just pop it in the freezer, and it's pretty delicious. Maybe that's the one that I'll post is my cashew cheesecake one instead.
I like the no bake idea on these desserts.
So easy.
That's a great idea.
No bake. It's nice and cold, and then you have a cup of tea with it. So good.
Yeah, and with coconut whipped cream.
Yeah.
But one thing to go back to the baking. So, Dr. Sonya, when you said the gluten-free, like when you're using coconut flour, you typically need more eggs. What I do is I use duck eggs for all my baking.
Yes.
And the reason I use duck eggs is they're bigger, and they make everything fluffier. So if it called for like 8 chicken eggs, I'll use 4 duck eggs. Unless the duck eggs are really small, but I typically cut it in half, and it just makes everything so fluffy, and you're using less eggs. So it actually price-wise ends up working out much better than, you know, all the chicken eggs.
You know, we get duck eggs at our farmers market, and one of the vendors has a list of the nutritional differences between chicken and duck. And across the board, duck has way more nutrients in it than a chicken egg. So
Could you do me a favor and take a picture of that?
I have a picture. I've already taken it. I'll put
Fabulous.
it's, you know, it's kind of farmers, like, you know, handwriting. It's a little old, but I should probably turn it into like an infographic or something, but I'll post it in the group.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah. And in fact, I was thinking, as you guys were like talking about the cashew cheesecake, we should, if you're listening to this and you don't belong to our Facebook group, please join the group, and we'll be posting some things in there. The 3 of us are talking about how do we put together all these recipes and get them to you. So we will be posting how you get that in the group. So that's a great resource for you.
So any other tips or tricks that you guys recommend for the holidays, or your favorite recipes or anything? What do you guys do? So Christmas Day, right? Typically we eat all day long, so that's a massive feast day. What does the day after look for you guys, other than shopping till you drop if you're in Canada Boxing Day?
Oh, I don't shop till I drop on Boxing Day. That's movie day, actually. The next day it's movie and continuing on with the game. Fast.
Yeah, I was going to say fast.
Yeah,
I really like the using fasting around these feast moments. I think it's such a wonderful balance, and it allows you to eat and not feel guilty and enjoy it, and then fast the next day and you feel like you're cleansing yourself.
Yeah, your
that's
body
what we
needs
do
time
too.
to digest all that food that you've had.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm going to go back to quality of ingredients. I think is really important. The other thing is, if you're eating out, you know, I do restore before I eat out. I have enzymes. I've been doing my Z gluten all morning since I glutenized myself. But I have enzymes ready to go and bind at night. If I get, you know, I go to a friend's house that doesn't know about dry farm wines, first I slap them across the face and I go, "What are you doing drinking this toxic wine?" And then I tell them about dry farm wines. But if I happen to get wine hasn't been vetted for chemicals, then I got my bind at night.
I like to throw in Cyto with that too. So I'll do a couple drops of Cyto, and I've even been known to throw in a couple drops of Cyto into my glass of wine while I'm drinking it.
Yeah.
There you go.
That way, you know, it's just already in there, so I don't have to worry about taking it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I would even throw in a Trantel in there. So last Christmas, it was a saver for me. We had this brunch with Santa that we did with the family, and I just knew, just looking at the food, I'm like, this is not going to be good. And it wasn't, and a Trantel came to the rescue. So I think having that on hand, you can take like post-meal is really great if you're going to be using enzymes before.
Yeah, and I think we should list these things in the Facebook group. So if people want to go and order them, they can, because those are all game changers. I haven't tried a Trantil when I feel like I need a little extra digestive. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Niles does it. I haven't yet, but he says that it helps quite a bit when he gets that bloated feeling like, oh my gosh, I got something that I shouldn't have eaten.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome.
Love it. Yeah. All good
Super.
tips.
Well, I hope you all got some really good ideas, some different alternatives for a happy holiday season, and you can still enjoy food. You don't have to eat flavorless, boring food. Just make the swaps. And if you guys have any questions about swapping things out, reach out to us in the Facebook group. The three of us are pretty good at getting back to you. And you might get all three of us getting back to you, giving you different ideas as to how you can swap things out.
Yeah, so if any of our listeners has great recipes, I think recipes are a really fun thing to share. So share it in the group so that everybody can benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm always asked about recipes. I'm sure you guys are too.
Yeah, always. So the more we gather, the better it is. So we can try each other's out. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy the holiday season with your loved ones and friends, and make sure you enjoy good, healthy, quality food as well.
And lots of fasting.
Happy holidays. Yes.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
Happy holidays.
If you've been enjoying the Women in Wellness podcast, please take 2 minutes to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes.
This helps more women find the podcast to get the information they have been searching for.
This way we can truly change the world one woman at a time.
Remember, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook,
where we're sharing information with women every single day.
Join us next week for another episode of Women in Wellness.
And as always, thank you for listening.